The silent signal the battlefield hung in silence. Ships drifted like broken bones in the cold black space. Wreckage floated between the stars, lit only by the weak glow of dying engines. The war had raged for weeks, leaving the alien coalition battered and desperate. Every day they had lost ground. Every day their enemy pushed harder. Now their last defensive line was about to fall. Inside the coalition command ship, the air was thick with tension. Officers spoke in hushed tones, afraid to say out loud what they all knew. Defeat was moments away. The enemy's red markers on the tactical display pushed closer and closer to the capital planet. There were still millions of civilians trapped on the surface. Evacuation was impossible. They needed a miracle, but no one believed one was coming. Then it happened. A sharp beep echoed in the war room. One of the signal officers frowned and tapped his console. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission," he said. The commander didn't even look up. Probably another surrender demand. He muttered. "No, sir," the officer replied, his voice trembling. "This is different." The encrypted signal flashed on the screen. 3 words appeared in bold white letters. "Human armada inbound." The war room froze. Every officer stared at the words, unsure if they were real. Some exchanged hopeful glances. Others paled as if they had just heard a death sentence. Stories about humans, the Deathworlders, had spread through the galaxy for years. They came from a planet so dangerous that surviving childhood was considered military training. Every animal on their world could kill you. Every climate could freeze or burn you. And every human was shaped by that life or death struggle. When they fought to end wars, not to win them, to end them. The coalition commander leaned forward. "Confirm it," he ordered. The officer's hands shook as he worked. "It's real, sir. The signal matches old Terran military encryption. This isn't a trick." A murmur spread through the room. For some, hope returned. For others, dread settled in. If humans were coming, the battle would not end quietly. On the enemy flagship, far across the battlefield, another signal was detected. The enemy commander, a scarred reptilian warlord, stared. At the readings, he knew what it meant. His voice was low. "Prepare all ships. Deathworlders are coming." His officers hesitated. "But we can still do it," the warlord snapped. "If we wait, we die." In the coalition fleet, sensors began to pick up a massive gravitational disturbance. Something was emerging from hyperspace. At first, the readings made no sense. Then the darkness outside shifted. A shape appeared, huge and jagged against the stars. The enemy guns fell silent. Even the wounded ships stopped moving. It was as if the entire war zone was holding its breath. The shadow grew larger. Then another appeared beside it, and another. Dozens of black-armored ships slid into normal space. Their hulls glinted faintly, reflecting the starlight like blades. At their center, a giant vessel moved with slow, unstoppable weight. Its presence crushed the space around it. The coalition officers stared in awe. The enemy officers stared in fear. The lead ship, the Leviathan, was a monster. Its hull bristled with weapons that pulsed with restrained power. Every turret, every cannon, every missile bay seemed ready to unleash destruction. The coalition commander whispered, "By the stars?" The human fleet didn't fire. Not yet. They simply took position. Their formation perfect. Then the guns crackled to life. A deep voice spoke, cold and calm. "This is Admiral Cade of the Terran Armada. We have received your signal. Stand." Clear of the engagement zone. No one moved, no one spoke. The Deathworlders had arrived, and nothing would be the same again. From the enemy's side, fear spread like wildfire. Their comms filled with frantic voices. "They're here." One pilot whispered, "The humans are here." Ships began to break formation. Some tried to flee. Others moved forward in desperation. But all of them knew the battle had already changed. The Leviathan's forward cannons shifted. locking on to distant enemy ships, the hum of charging. Weapons rolled across the void. The coalition commander clenched his fists. Part of him feared what was about to happen. Another part wanted to see it. In the far distance, the first human fighter wings launched. Their engines burned like small suns against the darkness. The comms went dead silent. Only the sound of the charging weapons remained. Then, in the war room, the tactical display lit up in red. Enemy ships were disappearing from the map before they even registered as hit. One by one, their signals winked out. The coalition commander exhaled slowly. The Deathworlders had not come to negotiate. They had come to end the war, and they had only just begun. Arrival of the black ships. The human fleet moved as one. Not a single ship out of formation. They glided forward with the slow, unstoppable certainty of a tide that could not be turned. The coalition forces pulled back instinctively, evening. Bravest captains felt the weight of that advance pressing on their chests. It was not just power they saw. It was intent. The Leviathan took point. Its massive hull scarred from ancient battles, but still unbroken. Dark panels drank in the starlight, making it seem more like a moving shadow than a ship. Each gun turret tracked slowly, as if choosing its prey. The glow from its forward cannons was like lightning trapped in glass. Behind it, rows of smaller human destroyers and cruisers formed a protective wall. Each one carried the same deadly precision. Even the smallest among them radiated a presence that said, "This is not a ship you can touch and live." Enemy scouts tried to break through and gather intel. They never returned. One by one, their signals vanished from the battlefield map. No debris, no escape pods, just silence. It was as if the void itself had swallowed them inside the Leviathan's command. Bridge. Admiral Cade stood at the center platform. His expression was calm, unreadable. Around him, human officers worked their stations with mechanical focus. There was no shouting, no panic. Every movement was controlled. Every command was short and precise. Humans were not here to prove themselves. They were here to finish what others had started. The enemy commander's voice cracked over open comms. "This is your only warning. Deathworlders, turn back." The words were met with static. Then Admiral Cade's voice came through, colder than before. "Your warning is noted, ignored, and forgotten." The channel went dead. Enemy fleets shifted into attack formation. Dozens of ships moved forward. Weapons armed, energy flares lit the dark. From the coalition side, some hoped the enemy would score an early hit. Others knew better. Humans did not wait to be struck. The Leviathan gave a single silent signal, and the black ships scattered. Outward in perfect arcs, like the opening of a steel jaw, they moved with impossible speed for their size. Firing solutions were calculated in milliseconds. Cannons rotated, missiles armed, railguns hummed with restrained violence. The first human volley tore across the war zone. Enemy shields flared and then shattered. Ships that had survived years of combat split apart in seconds. Coalition crews stared in disbelief as entire enemy squadrons vanished in streaks of fire. The air in the command deck was filled with the hum of destruction. It was almost beautiful. In a terrifying way, the enemy tried to counterattack. A dozen heavy cruisers charged forward, unleashing a wall of plasma fire. The Leviathan's armor drank it in, barely a scratch, and it answered with a single shot from its main cannon. The lead cruiser didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Only drifting sparks remained where it had been moments before. The coalition commander found himself leaning forward. He had seen great fleets before. He had seen legendary battles. But this was different. This was not a battle. It was a dismantling. The humans were not fighting for territory. They were removing an obstacle. Enemy morale began to break. Some ships turned to retreat. Others fired wildly in panic. The humans did not chase recklessly. They moved with surgical precision. Every target they destroyed was chosen. Every strike meant to crush not just ships, But on the battlefield map, red blips began to vanish faster and faster, Coalition. Officers whispered in awe. The Deathworlder armada had arrived, and the Warzone would never look the same again. Asterisk. The Warzone burns. The battlefield was no longer silent. It roared with the sound of destruction. Explosions lit the void like distant suns. Enemy ships burned in every direction, their twisted hulls scattering debris across the stars. The Deathworlder. Armada moved like a predator through a field of prey. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. Human weapons struck with surgical accuracy. Missiles arced in perfect curves, slipping past shields as if they were paper. Railguns punched holes clean through enemy carriers. Plasma cannons melted armored dreadnoughts in seconds. The Coalition's tactical screens lit up with kill markers. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The enemy's fleet strength was dropping. Faster than any battle record in history, Coalition officers stared in disbelief. They had begged for help, but they had not expected this. Every strike was controlled. Every target selected to cripple the enemy's ability to fight. Yet somehow, the humans avoided civilian zones. Even in the chaos, they never missed. They didn't just fight with power. They fought with absolute precision on the enemy flagship. The warlord slammed his claws into the armrest. His second-in-command whispered, "Our reserves are gone." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "Call the reinforcements," he growled. The order went out. Far away, in deep space, an entire reserve. Fleet answered. Dozens of fresh warships prepared to jump in, but humans were already waiting for them. A deep tremor rolled through the void. The Leviathan deployed its gravity snares, invisible fields that bent space like water. When the reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, they didn't arrive in formation. They fell apart instantly. Ships collided, engines failed, half of them were crippled before they could even aim their guns. Human cruisers moved in to finish the job. Bright blue ion blasts carved through the helpless reinforcements. In minutes, the fresh fleet was nothing but drifting wreckage. The Coalition commander exhaled slowly. He had heard humans were dangerous, but this was something else. Across the Warzone, the enemy began to scatter. Some fled, some tried to regroup, but the humans kept pressing forward. The battlefield map was turning from red to empty. It was no longer a fight. It was an execution. One Coalition officer whispered, "It's over." But the commander shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "They're not done yet on the Leviathan's bridge." Admiral Cade watched the collapsing enemy lines with cold eyes. His voice was steady. "Target their flagship." The order was given. Every gun in range shifted toward the massive enemy command ship. And somewhere, deep in enemy space, a voice whispered the truth everyone now knew. The Deathworlders were not here to save the day. They were here to end the war. Asterisk, the hunt. The enemy flagship broke from formation. Its massive engines roared to life, throwing it into a desperate escape. The remaining escorts surrounded it, forming a shield of steel and fire. Their only mission now was to buy time. They knew they could not win, but they could try to run. Admiral Cade stood on the Leviathan's bridge, his gaze fixed on the fleeing blip on the tactical display. "Do not let them leave this sector," he ordered. Human destroyers surged forward, flanking the flagship from both sides. Cruisers followed close behind. Their railguns primed, the chase had begun. The enemy dove into an asteroid field. Jagged rocks the size of cities drifted in the darkness. The field was thick, dangerous, perfect for losing pursuers. Coalition officers, watching the pursuit, shook their heads. Even humans would be slowed here. But the Deathworlders didn't slow at all. The Leviathan's sensors mapped the entire asteroid field in seconds. Its a high nemesis plotted dozens of firing paths at once. Human ships weaved between the tumbling rocks with impossible precision. Asteroids that threatened to collide were shattered by quick railgun bursts. Every movement was controlled, every turn perfect. The enemy flagship tried to hide behind the debris, but Nemesis already knew where it would go next. Enemy escorts fought desperately. They fired volleys of plasma into the darkness, hoping to hit something, but the humans were ghosts. They slipped in and out of the shadows, destroying escort ships one by one. Every hit was clean, every kill final. Wreckage spun away into the black, silent and lifeless. The chase dragged deeper. Into the field, the flagship's engines screamed, pushing to their limit, but humans were closing in. 2 destroyers cut across its path, forcing it to turn. A human cruiser swung behind, railguns tearing chunks from its rear armor. The enemy. Warlord bared his teeth in rage. "We will not be taken alive," he snarled, but his voice carried a tremor. Fear. On the Leviathan, Admiral Cade gave a small nod. Engage the tractor beams. Blue light lanced out, wrapping around the flagship like invisible chains. The massive vessel shuddered as its engines strained against the pull. Metal groaned, hull plates tore away. The enemy flagship slowed, inch by inch. Its escorts were gone. Its escape was over. The warlord slammed his fist into the console. Break. Free. He roared, but the crew knew. There was no breaking free from the Deathworlders. Outside, the Leviathan's shadow loomed larger. Its forward cannons glowed with rising energy. The chase had ended. The kill was coming. Asterisk. No surrender. The enemy flagship hung in space, trapped in the Leviathan's grip. Its engines whined at full power, but the tractor beams held it like iron chains. Fires burned along its hull, leaking trails of molten metal into the void. The crew inside ran between flickering consoles, their eyes filled with panic. They knew their shields were gone, their weapons spent. Only the bridge remained intact. For now, the enemy warlord stood tall in the center of the chaos. His voice thundered over the comms. "We will never surrender." His words were sharp, defiant, but deep in his eyes, the truth was there. This was the end. Admiral Cade's reply was instant. Understood. No threats, no speeches, no demands. Only that single word. Then, without hesitation, the order came. Main cannon. Fire. The Leviathan's forward cannon began to glow. A deep, rising hum rolled through the fleet. Energy built like a storm contained inside a single point. The light burned brighter until it drowned out the stars behind it. Enemy crew members stared out of shattered windows. Some screamed, some prayed. All knew the blast was for them. The beam erupted. A blinding column of white light speared through the enemy flagship. For a moment, it was whole. Then the center split apart. Metal tore like paper. Engines exploded in bursts of fire. The bridge vanished in a cloud of debris, and the warlord's voice was gone. Coalition officers watched in stunned silence. The flagship, symbol of enemy command, was now drifting wreckage. Its remains floated in the void, glowing with the last heat of destruction. The tactical map updated instantly. Enemy fleet cohesion collapsed. Ships began fleeing in every direction. Some even surrendered on open comms. But the humans ignored them. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. On the Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Cade stood unmoving. "Mark their homeworld," he said quietly. The command was carried out in seconds. Every ship in the Deathworlder armada turned as one. The hunt was over. The invasion was about to begin. Asterisk. The final strike. The Deathworlder armada cut through the void like a blade. Behind them, the war zone was silent, littered with the wreckage of a defeated enemy. Ahead lay the enemy's homeworld, a planet wrapped in fire and steel. Its defense grid glowed bright against the black. Dozens of orbital platforms tracked the human fleet. Hundreds of defense ships formed a tight perimeter. It was a fortress, but to the Deathworlders, it was only a target. On the Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Cade studied the world in silence. Coalition voices crackled over the comms. "You've won the battle." "There's no need for this," one commander pleaded. Turn back before you destroy them all. Another begged. Cade did not answer. His eyes never left the tactical map. The humans had gone too far to stop now. Enemy commanders broadcast their defiance. Deathworlders, you will not set foot on our soil. Their voices shook. They had seen what the armada had done to their fleets, but still they clung to the hope of their planetary shields. That hope was already dying. Cade raised a hand. All ships, prepare for orbital strike, the order was. Calm, almost quiet, yet every crew member moved with deadly focus. Missile bays slid open. Railguns adjusted their aim. The Leviathan's main cannon began to glow once more. The hum of charging energy filled the void. It was the sound of judgment. The first volley came from human destroyers, dozens of missiles. Streaked through the void, weaving past enemy fire. Orbital platforms tried to intercept them. Some succeeded, most failed. Explosions lit the sky above the planet, tearing open gaps in the defense grid. Enemy ships surged forward in a last desperate charge. They fired everything: plasma, rail slugs, beam cannons. The Leviathan took the brunt of the assault. Its shields flared like a wall of lightning. The armor beneath didn't so much as dent. When the firestorm cleared, the humans were still advancing, and the enemy knew the end had come. Final sequence, Cade ordered. The Leviathan's main cannon released its fury. A single blast carved through the last orbital platform and punched into the atmosphere. Shockwaves rippled across. The surface, military bases, command centers, and weapons silos vanished in blinding light. The ground itself cracked under the force. The fortress world's defenses were gone. Silence fell across every channel. The planet lay exposed. The Deathworlders did not land troops. They didn't need to. The message was clear. The war was finished. But Admiral Cade had one more order to give. Transmit to every world, he said, and his voice carried like a cold wind through the galaxy. This is the cost of calling us. Asterisk the message to the galaxy. The war ended in a single day. The battlefield that had once roared with fire was now silent and empty. Enemy ships that had once blotted out the stars were reduced to drifting wreckage. The enemy homeworld burned in the distance, its defenses shattered beyond repair. No one had expected the Deathworlder armada to come so quickly. No one had expected them to leave even faster. Coalition ships remained in orbit, frozen in place. They watched as the black-armored fleet began to turn away. No looting, no occupation, only the cold. Final withdrawal of a predator that had already claimed its kill. The Leviathan led the way, moving with slow, deliberate power. Its shadow passed over the burning planet one last time. It felt less like a ship leaving and more like a judgment. Passing on every open channel across the sector, Admiral Cade's voice came through. Calm, steady, and without mercy. To all worlds who call for us, he said, understand the cost. There was no threat. There was no promise. Only truth. The transmission repeated twice. Then the comms went silent. Across the galaxy, message spread like wildfire. Some races swore never to summon the Deathworlders. Others whispered that they would, if the danger was great enough. But all agreed on one thing. When the humans came, they did not bring hope. They brought an ending. The Deathworlder armada vanished into hyperspace. The stars swallowed their silhouettes. The void grew quiet again, but the memory of that day would never fade. In every corner of the galaxy, children would hear the stories. Commanders would study the battle. Leaders would weigh their choices carefully. Because the Deathworlders were not just warriors. They were the line between survival and extinction. And once they crossed that line, there was no going back. Asterisk.